Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another Wolfram Language Design Review, part of our Language Completeness and Consistency series. And let's look at the topics. NetTrainResultObject.
Right. I object to this formatting with a head as if it's some sort of summary box or something, right? Either it should just be a thing on its own, like, an
Yeah, I
information.
kind of agree. Why does it have that head there?
It was decided to add it at one point. It was before my time, but I think it was a similar meeting and was decided to make it. Given that I think it was considered bad practice not to have the head, like to not to show
Well,
explicitly
but I
what the
suspect what
object was.
happened is that we decided that when what was inside was just a summary blob, but then it became a very rich thing. So
Could be that, yeah.
That's the results, right? So during the training, you will have seen an interactive version of that, probably.
Yep.
Exactly. Yep.
And then this is the result of
This is what happens when you
NetTrain.
put all in the third argument, which packages basically the meaning is like package every property, including the network.
Is NetTrainResultObject a documented thing?
Of course.
I agree this is kind of weird. I mean, give me some analogies for where we would do this but not have the head displayed.
Well, information spits out an information data object that doesn't show the head, and that's the example right below.
It's a star data object, though. But where else do we have things where... I mean, I agree the head looks kind of silly.
Mm-hmm. Right. So obviously, things like tabular and data set don't show the head.
I wasn't read into this topic, so I didn't prepare for it, but I suspect system information might be doing something similar.
Let's take a look.
Yeah, system information return. Now that one is a bit different in that you can't query its properties after the fact, which is perhaps a bug, or
Yeah,
missing
and
feature.
information is partially based on what system information does.
Yeah, so and also system information data is which is maybe the wrong name, but system information data I don't think is a documented symbol, but that is the head of what returned. That
Right.
was the thing that I couldn't remember without double checking.
And where else do we use NetTrainResultObject?
As an input to other things, I don't think we use it at all. Is a way to package stuff.
Right. And then if you want to query properties, you can query properties.
Oh boy, this version has only web documentation.
Oh, it must be a 14.4 because it's prototype and maybe we haven't finished a 14.4 doc build yet.
The fact that you can go in and get these sub values, which you can't do for information, can you? Or
Yes, you can. It's right there.
Yep.
So I can take this.
Yep.
Well, I don't feel incredibly strongly about this, but I think I would tend to agree with Itai that there's no real reason that this is not adding anything.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, let's kill it.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe quick question for you, Itai.
Can I do that off with its head? But that is what we're talking about.
Can I do that keeping it the summary box, or we can discuss this offline maybe, Itai.
What do you mean?
We'll discuss offline.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get into the meaty topic. Is Christopher here by any chance?
He was invited.
He was invited, but he never responded to.
Okay. All right. Well.
Yes, and Tom had some sort of emergency, so he's not here either.
And Mark.
Oh, Mark's not here.
No, I just was trying to reach him, but
Well, okay. Let's do a quick look at this but I don't know how successful we're going to be.
Okay. Right. So, okay. Right. So just to remind everybody, so right, we've talked about sort of three forms of supplied. One is the, you give it a single element, right? So supplied represents the function with added arguments to it, right? In like map or other things. And so you can give a single element, in which case it adds that to whatever are the normal elements given to the function. You can give it a list of elements which replace, and
So this, for example, would give us the equivalent.
That's a sort of silly example, right? But give it like the list
Why?
that you see, because that would be in right. That's going to be
Oh,
no
I see.
different from.
I get it. Okay. The right. But this is giving just index, or it's giving the index and the actual payload value.
That'll give both. So that is basic. Yeah. So you
You
should
should
be
be
able
able
to
to run that.
evaluate that in prototype.
Really?
It's a fake implementation.
Wow.
I mean, do not get too excited. This is a completely fake implementation that only works at level 1 via up values. And
Yeah, okay, fine. What else can I give other than indexed?
well, if you go down to the examples below, you will be able to see it. Right. So the default element is sub-expression. Right. I think potentially besides index, I think the most interesting ones are the level ones.
Yeah.
Because I think most of the other things you could just extract them yourself if you wanted to, right?
This is a nice piece of functionality. This is going to be good.
Well, I am not as convinced as you are.
Why?
Because we haven't been able to come up with any actual use cases. I mean, we've created these things that illustrate, the implementation, illustrate the syntax, but in terms of any actual applications,
Well, if we didn't have map indexed, we'd have a great big application.
sure.
And
But
actually, I mean, even with so what are functions that don't have, like fold doesn't have a an index, right?
sure. But like I said,
Well, that's an example where we can't do that right now.
sure, we can't do that. But the question is, would you ever actually want to do that?
I've wanted to do that from time to time. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, and then what I've had to do is I've had to put something into the payload that is a counter.
Okay. Well, all I can say is, well, well, maybe we need something then for index. All I can say is, I've asked Ian to come up with, compelling examples, and thus far we haven't
Well,
seen.
let's look at. I think we're more likely to have examples in cases of functions that are less well trafficked, like maybe map thread, for example.
Ian, have we thought about map thread? I don't remember off the top of my head.
I'm putting in index in map thread, for example.
Let me look at map thread real quick.
Okay.
So map thread's a little unusual because it takes an argument from one of multiple lists.
Yeah, right.
It's not clear how
Well, it's
The whole
I know,
model
but so
of
the whole point
adding
of
arguments for that would work.
I see. That's an interesting point. Personally, I find, I think this is somewhat easy to understand what's going on. I think it's a little weird that the argument here is I know we've talked about this, but I mean, given that this is going second, it's a little weird. I know that the F isn't the same. I don't know what I'm saying, but it seems a little wrong.
But
The
to do
argument
it, put that index in a list. Doesn't it make sense that the variables go
Yes,
first?
it does. It does make sense. That's quite nice.
Right. So the current status of this is we've implemented it in tree map and tree scan, for real. I mean, Ian can speak up if he thinks that there
Okay,
are.
now how useful are they there, Ian?
It gives a nicer syntax than the current syntax for the same thing that we have.
For what?
For, say, by default, you want to map a function over the data. This allows you to map and have the function actually eat in the subtrees.
Right.
The children.
So tree map has this rule syntax. If you look up the ref page.
Right. So supplied is a replacement for level spec LMs.
But it's not a replacement. It's doing something different, right? I mean, tree map here, if I say supplied, and then it's level, right?
Mm-hmm. So the current way to do this would have been to say tree map of F, comma, tree, comma, all goes to level.
Well, this is a lot nicer.
Right.
I agree. And there's a lot of cases where you want to map and you need more than just the data at that particular node.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like in trees, just because of, in trees, you're typically traversing the whole tree and you need, you may need different aspects of where you are in the tree. Sure, we have map all, but come on, how often do you use map all as opposed to just plain map or mapping at a single level?
Yeah.
And so I feel like, normal map is different from, so I think the two compelling use cases we have are trees, which are at least partially implemented, right? We've implemented tree map and tree scan. And then, also things we talked about using this for like color function, and then you don't have to, remember the mystical argument order. You can just use some sort of supply to say exactly what you want to feed into it. And I think this is on the agenda somewhere that Jason approached us about using supplied in biomolecule.
Scan's not implemented.
Okay. So what was the use for color function?
Right.
Well, there's a lot of visualization options that are something function, and so like Jason Biggs has reached out to me about wanting to have in biomolecule plot 3D, for example, color functions that eat elements that refer to something in chemistry. I think there was something called like the
I
gas
see.
Steiger
But so
partial
what would that
charge.
actually look like? So it would be color function arrow supplied of something, or how would that work?
Yes.
Right. And then, this, right, just like map is the thing that has to analyze the supplied and decide what to do with it, then, biomolecule plot would look at that supplied and interpret that things and in order to decide what to, what.
So the way it would look is something like plot 3D of, sine xy or whatever it is.
Right. And now you could give, list X, Y, or XZ, sure, goes to, and, your favorite function.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
And
And
something
this also solves the parentheses problem at the
It
same
does.
time.
Yes, it does. I know. I was just thinking that.
and something you haven't tried yet that also works is a single argument supplied, where you have a pure function and it looks at the named slots. So you could do supplied of hash x plus hash z squared. Right.
Pretty nice.
This is cool, but isn't this changing the semantic of the argument? I mean, sequence versus list/association.
Right. So the one argument form requires a function, and it changes the function to instead take an association rather than a sequence of elements.
Yeah, but how does that work within plot 3D? Plot 3D knows that then.
Right. It'd
Okay,
be the
so
same. It's the same
the
set of elements that are supported by both forms.
okay, so the vararg form is documented to be kind of simplified to the list of arguments.
Let's take a look at some of the actual examples. There's a syntax examples there,
Right.
and that should make it clear. There, I think it's at the bottom of the screen now, supplied body ampersand.
Yeah, I get it.
So you can append a single element, you can overwrite the sequence of elements, or you could make it take an association by using a pure function.
Right. So then, the thing I get right. So I guess the thing is that the function that's using the supplied needs to then feed it an association with those keys in it. Is that
right?
Yeah, as an implementation detail, right? The user doesn't need to care about that, but
does it make sense to use it in graph? In graph, like to get annotations like values, you always need to specify the graph and the vertex. Yeah,
I think if
you don't have the graph assigned to a variable already, that's cumbersome. For example, you want to specify the vertex color and stuff, and you want to extract a property of an edge. You need both the graph and the edge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's vertex shape function and there's edge shape function. We could imagine there being elements for those that pull out graph annotations so that you can use graph annotations conveniently in those functions.
Yeah, I mean, this nest index thing is also a nice thing. It's not obvious how you do this otherwise. Then you're doing it with fold and arrange, for example.
One function that is always tricky to use is fold pair. Maybe this would make that slightly less obscure.
Yes. I like this. I'm liking this. I mean, I think the fundamental semantics that we have here seems to make sense. Now, what is this doing? What does this mean? Supplied keys. What is this?
Right. So this is an example, and that's why Rob's here. Right. This is an option to tabular functions that we showed to you prior to 14.2, and you said to not document pending wrapping up supplied, and they share. So the implementation of supplied and supplied keys share code.
What does supplied keys mean?
Rob, can you maybe say this better than I can?
The idea is I mean, we originally called them virtual keys. So there are things that are sort of implicit in the tabular, like a row number, for example.
Yeah.
I think it's the obvious case. So we supply the row number, and then you can actually use the row number in the computation.
So why would this not be equivalent to this thing? Forget that, and then saying here, supplied of row number, comma hash. Is that the same thing?
No. So the 2-argument form of supplied is for things that take a sequence of arguments, and this would mean
I
a
see.
pinned row number is an additional argument.
But so, for example, if I said here, whatever the thing is,
Well, I guess
payload.
actually I'll retract what I said. I think this could work, but it wouldn't mean add row number as a key. It would mean the function takes the association as its first argument, and then it takes row number as its second argument.
Fine. Okay, but the basic point is there is a syntax here. I mean, this supplied keys mechanism could be used. We could imagine something where you just say map F, ABC, supplied keys, arrow, index. Is that a true statement? So effectively, it's an alternative syntax to the one where you wrap supplied around the F.
Something important here is that the function is looking at the hash names. And so if the row number appears there, then it's added to the association of information that is fed to the function. So supplied keys is adding that information even if it doesn't appear in the function. That's the role of supplied keys here.
Right. Yeah. So supplied keys, I guess, really plays a slightly different role, right? It's not
exactly
changing. It's change. Right. The function is always fed an association. Supplied keys changes what's in that association.
So supplied keys is not needed for row number to work. It's simply able to add row number even if row number doesn't appear in the function itself.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's well, I'm a little confused.
Is what I said right, Rob? Did we lose Rob for some reason?
I muted. The default supply keys is automatic, which is exactly what Jose said. If we detect row number, we add it. But he's also correct. If you put in row number specifically, we actually include it, whether or not it's explicitly in the function. Because somebody might use some bizarre construct that constructed a key lookup for the association argument that might include row number. I mean, it would be hard to do, but you could do it.
I feel like that is the precedent for that is like for handler functions and handler function keys. Looking at the body of the function has no guarantee about what items from the association are requested. You could use a symbol defined as a down value inside the function.
Right. Precisely.
That would break all of that parsing. So I think the supplied keys is extremely useful.
Right, but I just to make sure what I'm saying is correct. In transform columns, the function is always fed a single argument which is an association, and what supplied keys does is change what keys appear in that association.
Well, it's sort of true, Itai.
Yeah.
So it's given an association if your tabular has column keys. If it does not have column keys, it's given a list.
Okay. And
so what happens if it's given a list?
Well, then keys have no meaning, so you can't do this.
Well, then, so supplied keys just falls on the floor and doesn't do anything?
Right, doesn't do anything. Maybe I can't remember. I may have just added an extra thing to the list, which is the row number.
Just as an element of the list.
Just as an element of the list, like the last element of the list.
Yeah, well, so that we need to figure out whether that's what's happening. But the question is whether, okay, we've got one of these inside out, outside in type stories here. Is there an equivalent way could I, with transformed columns, yes, can I do that with a supplied inside the function there? The answer is, well, it will do something slightly different, but we need to understand how different. I mean, in that second form there, this form here, does that do the same? Could that be doing the same thing? I don't quite understand what, I mean,
So I
no,
So
not quite.
the default for transform columns is supplied keys goes to automatic, which means that since it sees row number in lexically in the body of the function, then that virtual key will be made available to the pure function.
Yeah.
So there's some keys that are supplied automatically if they're present in the function.
I mean,
Go ahead.
yeah, I sort of wonder, because I mean, I haven't looked at supplied in ages, and when I was first going through the discussion, I was trying to figure out why, why wouldn't use a function associated, and then I saw it had the associate. But it seems like, I think as Carlo pointed out, it'd be very nice to have a syntax which says, even if it's an associate, I mean, some syntax that says, I want an association, I want these keys included in that association, without having to scan the function for those keys.
Okay, look, it seems to me one of the things about supplied is its operation can depend on what function it lives in. So we need to figure out how to make, and the question is, do we want supplied keys to be a general thing? I mean, it could be that there are functions we haven't looked yet, where there are multiple functions that should have supplied in them. See what I'm saying? For example, I could imagine inner, which has an F and a G, having supplieds in both the F and the G. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Also, is there any reason for supplied keys to not be an option of supplied itself?
What would it do there?
Well, it would inform the function that envelops it how to what to pass to the supply function.
I see.
right. I suppose.
Yeah. Effectively, the one argument form of supplied currently is doing what supplied keys goes to automatic is doing,
Right.
which is it looks at the body of the function.
Right. So
if supplied also took a supplied keys option, you could explicitly give what keys are supposed to be available.
Which is analogous to handler keys. Is that right? Am I misremembering?
No, handler keys and handler function are separate options.
No, but handler keys determines what keys are given to the handler functions. Correct?
Yes, correct.
Yes, and in some
thing.
recent functions, we have added an automatic handler keys behavior that looks at the body of the handler functions and
You're referring
supplies
to
those.
Sorry.
No, please, I'm done.
Is the symbol we're referring to handler functions keys?
Oh yeah, sorry. I knew I was saying the wrong thing. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So just to make sure I haven't gotten lost about 5 minutes ago. So the idea is one argument form of supplied, it eats an association because you've given it an association style function, and then you could add an option to that, and then a supplied keys option to that, and then the body wouldn't have to be a pure function anymore. It could just be an F, and it would see whatever keys you give it in the supplied keys.
I think the supplied keys is
that's right.
assembling. Isn't the supplied keys assembling an association with those keys?
Right, but I'm saying if your symbol F has down values that eat a single association, then you could write supplied F,
Yes.
Supplied keys goes to your favorite keys, and then F will receive an association containing your favorite keys.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, something I'm still hanging up on that, particularly weird in the multiple argument version is why are the the things you're adding the first argument as opposed to the function being the first argument.
Well, that was what I was asking earlier, and the point was made. As soon as they're in a list, it's like a
It's like function.
It's like a function itself. It's like function itself. It's saying what arguments are going to be given to the second thing. It's like,
I see. So it's like function. Okay, that makes sense out to me. I sort of heard what you guys said, but I didn't quite catch that.
right. But okay, so look, what I think we need to do here, I think this is really going to be good. And I see on our live stream, Sander and Lou are both saying that they think it would be good too. I think what we need to do is inventory more functions that could take this. Okay, so particularly in functional programming, I mean, okay, so
can you open the supplied ref page?
Yeah.
There you'll see the inventory that we have so far, which is a decent list. The question marks are the questionable cases like map thread that the function already doesn't eat like a single element from something.
Did you say these are is select part of some list here, or is that just not filled out yet?
I don't have elements proposed
but
for
select
it yet.
Clearly would be useful to have the index.
Yes.
For example.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, we talked about a select index, but we don't want to do that. This is a much better solution.
Right. And like map at, map indexed, map all, map apply, they could take all of the same elements as map potentially.
Yeah, and map indexed might go down in popularity because you can just use map with supplied.
Maybe.
Right?
Yep.
Definitely. And for example, the crazy stuff about saying first of #2 in map index can go away because we can have an element of map that just gives the thing without first of
right in index. Right. So if you looked carefully at Ian's examples, there's position, which is really equivalent to map index, and then there's index, which is first of position.
Yep. Okay, fine.
Last of position.
Well, yes, sorry. I realized that I said that backwards as soon as I
Okay.
And for things that traverse expressions at different levels, is it possible to have like the counter of where is it acting?
What do you mean the counter?
Right. Well, it's not really position. So if a function is going to act at different levels 100 times, it will do it in some order.
Yeah,
so something
that would be useful to have. Yes, I agree. The count of which numbered application this is would be useful.
Exactly. Yep.
It's like the traversal index. Exactly, traversal index.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we were discussing last week this consecutive replace. I think it was an original name that we didn't like. It would be something like that.
Yes. There are lots of uses for this. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Now the I know you hate to get bogged down in practicalities, but right, implementing this in something like map is going to require, concentrated effort from somebody like Rob, right? That's not something I can just throw Ian at and expect him to actually finish in a finite amount of time. And so, maybe we start with the tree things and the color function. Well, I think we can obviously start with the tree things because Ian is the tree person and he knows how to do this for trees. And also we should encourage, say, Brett to, do it for some color functions or since Jason B expressed interest in this for his biomolecule plot, ask him to do it for biomolecule plot. And then
fine, but I think, look, if we can get in the 14.4 timeframe, if we can get, we'll start implementation now for some of these ones that are somewhat uncontroversial and not too hard to implement, and then work towards getting the more difficult ones, hopefully in the 14.4 timeframe.
All right. Okay, well, so we will start with that and see how far we can get.
Right. I think we should I mean, once you've gotten into this a bit, I mean, this is looking very promising to me.
Okay.
The thing about counters, by the way, one thing that, of course, putting the counter in blows up parallelism. So, I mean, we can put the counter in, and if there is a counter, then
yeah, there's a related sort of or a similar sort of complication even with the level spec, right? So you know, map and friends are very careful to only visit the levels they actually need to visit. But if you're going to compute the negative level, you need to actually traverse the whole thing anyway. So it's you know, that's an optimization we're going to lose, and obviously we don't want to lose that in general because we don't want to make map, you know, 3 times slower than it is. But you know, that's just going to be a complication, and I guess this is a similar.
Sorry. I lost concentration for a second. Could you say that again, please?
Right. So map, the implementation of map is very careful to only visit the levels.
Yes, exactly.
But if you include an element like negative level, there's no way to know the negative level without
understand
the whole thing.
Right.
So, you know, we want to get that optimization when we can, but we'll need to find a way to, you know, subvert it when we have to lose it.
Right. Okay. I need to disappear here.
Okay.
But I think this is a great thing. This will be good.
Yeah. And the next 2 items are you know, they're perennial items. We can delay them till we have some extra time in one of these meetings. So
right. Sandra, by the way, was commenting the same thing I commented about traversal count being hard for parallelism. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we would like more parallelism in you know, I mean, I guess we have parallel map, and that's another, by the way, that's another thing to think about, is how this stuff works with like parallel map. It should just work, except that we wouldn't support traversal order in that case.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't think any of these none of these current elements would be affected by parallel map.
Right. Ethan is commenting, what about using supplied to simplify image segmentation and component operations?
Carlo, Giulio, do you have any insight into that? I'm not sufficiently familiar with image stuff to comment.
I don't remember perfectly, but I think that like on the select components and morphological components were already updated many years ago to automatically provide the arguments if you use a pure function. So we are not using the old syntax.
Okay, so what we're doing, something like video map time series, or something like this. There we've already got hash image, hash whatever. We're already doing sort of automatically it's been given anything where you're feeding in an association has a good chance to be supplied like to begin with.
Yeah, in that case, actually, it would be kind of convenient for efficiency to know what supplied keys are if we want to really optimize. We don't want to extract the image if it's not used, then the parsing of the function
I agree, yes. To
not
give supplied
a straight
keys,
shot.
Right. It's an optimization, which would be nice.
Yep.
Ethan, by the way, is asking, which I was also wondering, about auto monitoring for map. I thought that was in 14.3, is it?
No.
It should be. It should be. No, it should be. There's some design thing that there's some design thing for an abort button that's missing. That's the only missing thing.
Well, but are we we
can probably put it in.
It's in the
Please put it in. It's really important.
Itai, ping me tomorrow. We sort it out.
Okay, I'll do my best. I have some external errands to run tomorrow, but
day after tomorrow is probably fine as well.
Okay,
I'll try to get hold of Billy in the meantime.
Okay.
I mean, what happens if I do this? Am I going to see it or not? No, I'm not.
You need.
Oh no! This is not going to work. You have to put monitor in front of it.
Monitor around it.
That has a cost, so you never want to do it up front.
Okay, but what's going to happen to that?
You just ignore
It's
it.
gonna
That's
disappear the moment we update the documentation.
I got a spinner here.
Well, that's not good.
Is this proto? I haven't
Yeah.
checked on the recent one.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, last time we
this is
tried
what
that, it
we're
was
really want to see
working.
this functionality. This is really important functionality as far
Okay.
as I'm concerned. So can we please try to do this?
Yep.
Okay, and now this is hung completely. So that's probably a good time to wrap up. Up, dead. The animal is dead. Okay. All right, good stuff. Thanks to everybody here. Thanks to folks on the live stream, and see you later.